You walk into a room you've never been in, and something in your chest drops. You've been here before. Not something similar. This exact conversation, this exact light, this exact turn of someone's head, except you haven't. You know you haven't. That's what makes it worse. For a second or two, you're holding two facts that can't both be true. This has never happened. This has already happened. And there's a third feeling that usually rides along with it, one people rarely say out loud. For a moment, you feel like you know what happens next. Then it's gone, and you're left standing in an ordinary room, a little rattled by something your own brain just did to you. Most people get this. Some studies put it as high as 2 out of 3 of us. It has a name, déjà vu, French for already seen, and for most of the last century, doctors treated it as a warning sign. It isn't one, and the real explanation is stranger and kinder than a glitch. It can be almost nothing that sets it off. A hallway, a stranger's sentence word for word, a smell that has nothing to do with where you actually are. To understand what's happening in that instant, you need to know your brain runs 2 separate checks on every moment you live through. One is fast, a gut reaction. Does this feel familiar? It fires before you've thought about anything, and it doesn't ask why. The other is slow. It tries to actually place the memory. When, where, who. Real searching, real work. Normally the two run together and agree, so smoothly, you never notice either one. Déjà vu is what it feels like when they don't. The fast system says, I know this. The slow system searches and comes back empty. That gap, the half second where familiarity says yes and the evidence says no, is the whole experience. It closes almost immediately, but while it's open, you're stuck holding both answers at once. For most of the 20th century, the story doctors told about this wasn't comforting. In 1876, the neurologist John Hewlings Jackson described it in patients mid-seizure, part of a set of strange sensations he called dreamy states. Decades later, the surgeon Wilder Penfield gave the idea its most dramatic proof. During brain surgery on epilepsy patients, done while they were awake, he touched an electrode to the temporal lobe. And right there on the operating table, some patients described déjà vu. Touch this exact spot. Get this exact feeling. For a long time, that looked like the whole answer. Déjà vu belonged to sick brains. A misfire. Except most people who get déjà vu have nothing wrong with them. Somewhere between 6 and 8 in 10 healthy people report it at some point in their life. That isn't a rare neurological event, that's most of the population. An explanation built entirely on seizures was never going to cover that. That still doesn't explain why it feels like this, in a completely healthy brain on a completely ordinary Tuesday. One real answer starts with what you're actually looking at when it hits. In 2012, a team led by Ann Cleary at Colorado State walked people through virtual reality scenes, gardens, hospital rooms, junkyards. Later, some saw new scenes laid out exactly like an earlier one. Same arrangement of walls and furniture, completely different theme. Those scenes felt far more familiar. People reported déjà vu at a noticeably higher rate, even with no memory of the earlier scene at all. This is the Gestalt familiarity hypothesis. Your brain isn't only recognizing objects, it's recognizing the shape of a space. Walk into a new room built like an old one, and the layout alone can trip the familiarity switch. No memory of the actual moment required. It's real, and it's tested. It lines up with those "I've stood exactly like this before" moments. It just isn't enough. Cleary's participants felt familiar. They didn't necessarily feel certain something was wrong. It explains a spatial echo. It doesn't explain the eerie part, the part where you're not recognizing a shape, you're convinced you've already lived this exact scene once. That still doesn't explain why it feels like this. Here's where it turns out kinder than anyone expected. A researcher named Akira O'Connor at the University of St. Andrews found a way to reliably bring on déjà vu-like states in a lab, using carefully built word lists that planted a false sense of familiarity. Then he scanned people's brains while it happened. Everyone expected memory regions to light up, the hippocampus, the areas that store and retrieve. That would fit the leading theory at the time that déjà vu is a small false memory, your brain briefly convincing itself something happened that didn't. That isn't what showed up. Activity spiked in the frontal lobe instead, the part that checks the part that compares two answers and notices when they don't match. So déjà vu isn't your memory failing. It's your memory succeeding at the one moment that doesn't feel like success. The familiarity system throws a signal. The checking system catches it, sees it doesn't add up, and flags it. That little jolt of wrongness you feel is the flag going up. It might be the sound of your memory's quality control doing its job. Evidence the system is intact, not proof it's cracked. It even explains something else. Déjà vu is most common in your teens and 20s, and it fades with age. That tracks with the part of the brain doing the checking. The systems that monitor and catch errors shift across your life the same way. You're not losing déjà vu because your memory gets worse. If anything, it's the opposite. But there's a piece of this almost nobody talks about, and it's the strangest part. People don't only feel like they've seen a moment before. Some feel for a second like they know what happens next. In 2018, Anne Cleary ran an experiment built to test exactly that. Same VR setup, matched spatial layouts, reliably triggering déjà vu. This time, right as it hit, she asked people to guess which way the path would turn. People who felt déjà vu were far more confident they knew the answer. The sense of prophecy was real, and it was strong. Their accuracy wasn't. They did no better than people with no déjà vu at all. Pure chance. A coin flip. The feeling of knowing what came next carried no actual information about what came next. So that eerie sensation, the one that makes déjà vu feel less like a memory trick and more like a crack in time, is manufactured. Your brain produces a genuine feeling of foreknowledge with nothing behind it. Later work found the illusion runs backward too. After the fact, people are more likely to feel like a moment played out exactly as expected than they actually predicted it. You're not glimpsing the future. Your brain is telling you a story about the present, and it believes its own story just as much as you do. We should be honest about what's still open. Not all déjà vu is the same thing. The kind linked to epilepsy, the kind Penfield could trigger with an electrode, looks and feels different from ordinary déjà vu in healthy people. Researchers who study both say patients can usually tell them apart. Whatever happens during a seizure and whatever happens to you in a hallway on a Tuesday probably aren't the same process wearing the same name. A lot is still unexplained too. Why more travel seems to mean more déjà vu? Why more education does? Nobody has a clean answer. Over the last century, researchers have floated more than 40 separate theories for this one small feeling, and none of them close the case completely. What we do have points somewhere specific. Not a broken brain. A careful one, occasionally catching itself mid-check, and a mind quick enough to spin a small story about prophecy out of nothing more than a familiar shape. So next time it happens, you'll be standing somewhere ordinary, and the floor will drop out from under you for a second. You'll feel certain you've been here. You might even feel, just for a moment, like you know what happens next. Neither one is true, but neither one is a malfunction. It's your memory's checking system catching itself mid-thought, and your mind filling the gap with a story it half believes. Somewhere behind your eyes, something you've never once noticed is working exactly as it should. Checking, matching, flagging, quietly, thousands of times a day. This is the one time you get to feel it happen. So stand there for a second. Let the feeling pass. It always does. You haven't seen the future. You've just caught your own mind for once in the act of being careful.